Hey everyone, welcome back. All right, let's get into it. Today, we saw some record-breaking heat across Texas and much of the eastern U.S. with temperatures well above normal. Meanwhile, the coldest air is still locked up to the North Montana. The Dakotas and Minnesota are seeing frigid conditions with even colder air sitting up in southwestern Canada. Now, let's take a look at today's highs across the western U.S. We're talking 70s and 80s in areas like the desert, southwest, southern California, and Arizona. But things will cool down a bit overnight, though not too much, with 50s and 60s lingering in the southwest. The real deep freeze is up north, where Montana will be below zero tonight, with wind chills pushing 20 to 25 degrees below zero. If you're in Montana, bundle up. Layers are your best friend if you're heading out early Tuesday morning. Moving into the central U.S., we saw blazing heat across Texas today, with some areas nearly hitting 90 degrees. But check out this temperature gradient. Southern Kansas saw the 80s, while northern Kansas barely made it into the 30s, and up in the northern U.S. It's a completely different world, with temps near or below zero in the Dakotas and northern Minnesota. By Tuesday morning, single-digit lows will stretch into South Dakota, southern Minnesota, and parts of Wisconsin. Meanwhile, areas that hit near 90 today will wake up to 40s tomorrow morning. Huge shift. Before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Now let's check out the east. The Ohio Valley, mid-Atlantic, and southeast have been incredibly warm with highs in the 50s, 60s, even 70s and 80s in Florida. Even Maine has caught a bit of a break from the cold, sitting in the 20s today. But by tomorrow morning, we'll see a drop, single digits and teens for lows in the northeast, while much of the southeast holds on to 40s, 50s, and 60s. If you're in the northern Ohio Valley, you'll be waking up to 20s, while the southern half will sit in the low to mid-30s. Looking ahead to the rest of the week, a mild air sticks around across the south and southeast. By midweek, a southwest flow will bring in more warmth ahead of the next storm system. This trend continues through Super Bowl weekend. However, a cold front arrives Sunday, finally pushing that warmth off the southeast coast. Now, let's talk about the Pineapple Express hitting the west coast. This system is causing travel issues, heavy snow in the mountains, and flooding concerns in Northern California. Rain will continue into Tuesday, and by midweek, the heaviest precipitation shifts south towards central and southern California. Even Los Angeles could see rain, which is much needed, but the big question is how much. By Thursday, another system moves in, bringing more rain and mountain snow, even reaching San Diego by the end of the week. But as we get into Super Bowl weekend, high pressure takes over, drying things out. Speaking of rainfall, Northern California is getting slammed with additional 6 to 12 inches of precipitation possible on top of what's already fallen. Down in LA and San Diego, we could see up to an inch. Great news for these drier areas. Sierra Nevadas. Meanwhile, could pile up 70 to 80 inches of snow by next Sunday. That heavy snow extends into Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, and Colorado. A big time snow event for. So what about the central and eastern U.S. right now? Interior New England is seeing some light snow, but midweek brings a major winter storm. By Wednesday morning, ice becomes a concern in northern Missouri, then shifts north into Iowa, northern Illinois, and northern Indiana by the afternoon. Snowfall stays north of Minnesota and Wisconsin, while the south deals with rain and even some thunderstorms. Thursday brings an interesting setup with high pressure in place. We could see cold air damming in the northeast, leading to a freezing rain event for parts of Pennsylvania, Maryland, and the Poconos. Then, as we head into Friday, another system develops across the plains, bringing more snow, freezing rain, and rain further south. A repeat performance for Super Bowl Sunday. With these back-to-back storms, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, and Tennessee are looking at 1 to 3 inches of rain, which could lead to isolated flash flooding. The snow line stays north, where the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan could see 3 to 6 inches. Heaviest snow will be in upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Maine. Meanwhile, the ice threat is real for parts of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, with over a 1/4 inch of ice possible. Beyond that, we're tracking a major pattern shift as the stratospheric polar vortex weakens, sending Arctic air south by mid-February. The intensity and reach of this cold outbreak depends on how strong it is. If temperatures drop to 50 def wind chills in the Dakotas, we could see Texas get with deep cold as well. Definitely something to watch. On top of that, we're eyeing multiple winter storms between February 10th and 16th, each riding along a buckling jet stream. One major storm is shaping up for February 12th, 13th, possibly bringing a big snow event before Valentine's Day. The European model suggests a classic northeast snowstorm. The GFS model pushes even heavier snow toward the I-95 corridor, including DC, Philly, and Baltimore. Now, let's talk about precipitation. Despite all the cold air moving in, we're seeing above average precipitation, which means more chances for snow in those cold areas. The Southeast is particularly looking at above average precipitation, and this extends into parts of the plains, mid-Atlantic, and Ohio Valley. But the big focus here is the 8-14-day outlook, where we're still seeing that little southeast ridge for the immediate southeast, but the rest of the country is looking at below normal temperatures from the central states to the northeast. This is for February 11th through the 17th. As for precipitation, there's a lot of above average moisture coming in, especially for the east, which means we could be in for some major snowstorms, particularly for the Northeast and Great Lakes. Even the Northwest is staying snowy, and it looks like we're seeing a shift toward a snowier trend for much of the East. Definitely a busier pattern compared to what we've seen in the past few weeks. If we take a look at the past 3 days of temperatures, it's been pretty warm across most of the U.S., except for the Northwest and Northeast, where we've seen some below average temperatures everywhere else, above normal warmth, with the exception of the cold patches up north. Looking ahead tomorrow, February 4th. We're seeing some snowfall in the Northwest and cooler temperatures over the North Central and Northeast regions. Meanwhile, there's a warm push coming from the south, which is creating a boundary where the warmth and the cold are meeting. This is going to bring some storms along that boundary, and we could see some rising thunderstorms in the Gulf states and Southeast. By February 5th, that boundary starts to come together, and we're looking at a lot of thunderstorms, some ice and snow for the Midwest. Snow continues in the Northwest too. By February 6th, we're seeing a little front-end snowfall in the Northeast with showers and thunderstorms underneath it. There's also a cold push moving into the Midwest as a strong low develops near the Hudson Bay and Great Lakes. Definitely a signal for colder air to push into the east. Moving to February 7th. We're still seeing the same push and pull between warmth and cold. By the 8th, we're looking at another storm system riding that boundary and bringing some snow to the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. Meanwhile, the Mid-Atlantic could see a wintry mix, but that will likely turn into rain over time. By the 10th, we're seeing a significant change with the jet stream dipping much further south. This is going to bring a cold blast to areas farther south than we've seen recently. We could see snow in the plains, and there's a storm system potentially forming in the Western Gulf. The 11th could bring severe thunderstorms to the south, while we're also watching for a major snowstorm moving through the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic by the 12th. By the 14th, the storm has moved out of the Northeast, but the Great Lakes and upper Midwest are still getting snow. We could see another round of snow in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. There's also a major Arctic air blast around the 15th that's going to bring cold temperatures deep into the central and eastern U.S. That will likely cause snow and wintry weather in the south too. So what does this all mean for the end of the month? We're seeing a lot of snow for the Northwest and the plains, with the potential for feet of snow in the Midwest and Great Lakes. The Mid-Atlantic and Northeast could also see significant snow, especially in areas like New England. The GFS model shows even more intense snowfall, so the potential is definitely there. Temperatures are going to stay warm for a while, but after the 10th, the cold really starts to settle in, and by the 11th, we're looking at temperatures well below normal. By the 13th, expect some of the coldest air of the season, possibly 15-20 degrees below average in many areas. All right, that's all I have for today's update. We've got a lot to watch in the next few weeks with plenty of snow and some major cold shots coming. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on everything and hit that bell icon for daily notifications so you never miss a video. If you enjoyed this one, don't forget to like it and leave a comment down below. I'll catch you in the next video.